Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 drops this winter, but the biggest questions I've been asked are what characters are going to be in it? What locations can we expect to play in? Because I think I found the Chapter 4 location already. And also, who might be returning to the factory as well? Because I think I have a few theories. Like the video if you end up enjoying, but let's get right into it. So the very first question I wanted to ask regarding Chapter 3, and probably the biggest one, is what new characters are going to be inside of it? And to start it off simple, we recently got a new trailer revealing the Playcare location with some of the kids in their on-site orphanage program, along with a couple new massive enemies, which we talk more about later. But this trailer also shows there's going to be a ton of new minor characters in the chapter. More specifically, in Project Playtime, we were able to find this now infamous poster of stuffed animals going inside of the Playcare, presumably referencing their appearance. And when watching the trailer back, you'll notice the red dog and blue unicorn making an appearance in the children's frames and also in real life. Plus, there's also a multitude of new characters we have never seen before. There's this animal, which looks like it might just be a recolored or weirdly positioned version of the dog from before. There's this green character with a big long tail, kind of looking like a beaver or something. And finally, there's this blue character here, which appears to be a lion, since lions are the only type of animal with this tasseled-like tail here. But it's also commonplace in cartoons to use this tail structure on other animals like horses, so it realistically could be anything. We can also theorize that these characters are possibly going to actually be alive, or at least inside of the factory, since in the trailer on the frame where we see Huggy's dead body, there's also a decapitated version of the red dog here physically. And while it has no blood or anything suggesting it might literally just be a stuffed animal, this could be telling us that these characters are going to be showing up in the game. And in fact, while there's really no evidence of this, I also theorize that these characters shown up here may be some sort of toy given to the Playcare children to try and keep them quiet. Just simply because we see them in the Playcare and pretty much nowhere else around the factory. Even in the Playcare rejected toy section in Chapter 2, we don't see these characters even once. So they clearly aren't making them and selling them, giving me the assumption these could be some kind of comfort animal they give to the children for when they inevitably start to panic, as we can see in the documents from the Chapter 3 ARG. However, the two biggest character mysteries are both the weird mechanical beast thing here and also the famous purple-clawed creature, with most people seemingly coming to the conclusion that the mechanical beast is probably the prototype or experiment 1006 from Chapter 2, which is fair enough. But what about the presumed Chapter 3 main antagonist here? What could this be? Well, I and many others have tried theorizing to pretty much no avail, and while I have no concrete answer, I have a good theory. See, as you may remember, the previously mentioned Playcare poster from Project Playtime shared with us the three characters, two of which we saw in the teaser, and then there's the yellow bird who never ends up making an appearance, meaning that there's possibly even more toys inside of the Playcare never actually shown off in the trailer itself, as the bird is completely missing from the picture, along with who knows how many other characters. And looking at the Playcare, as far as I'm aware, these colorful cartoony characters are the only toys that show up inside of it at all, outside of course, the dead ones. So that makes me wonder if maybe this purple creature we see here could be some sort of bear or stuffed animal, along with the rest of them who we just haven't seen yet. I mean, they even match the vibrant color palette of the rest with the bright purple-like color, making me think that this purple creature could be in the same family as all of the other colorful stuffed animals seen around it. Another interesting thing about this new character, though, is that while most people obviously assume the toy is, of course, a toy, in the recent Chapter 3 ARG, after solving some puzzles, we got access to a file called the Red Smoke Test 48, which, judged by the 48 number, seems to be one of their many tests on creating the infamous red smoke seen everywhere in the Chapter 3 promos. And in the video, we can of course see the red smoke coming out of some sort of large tube, which we actually get to see in full action from the purple creature himself when he spits out a blast of the red smoke before jump scaring the player, hence the massive hole of a smile they have on them where the smoke comes out of. But what this shows is that the creature could be made of some sort of mechanical pieces, judged from the smoke test that looks like it's made out of metal or something, very similar to other characters in the game like the prototype before, who is a mix of real and fake stuff, interestingly enough. I mean, it's still really confusing, but leave a comment on who you think it is and come back a few months later to see if you're right. But the next question, and maybe an even bigger question I really wanted to ask, was who is going to be returning to the chapter this time around? Especially since the developers have mentioned already that there were going to be multiple new characters returning into the game, so who could those be? Well, I have three main contenders, being Huggy Wuggy, Kissy Missy, and Daisy the Flower. Now, starting with Daisy the Flower, the scrapped musical memory main antagonist, while she seems to be a fully debunked theory from months ago where everyone thought she was going going to be the chapter 3 main antagonist, I still to this day believe she is probably going to have an appearance. And the reason for this simply comes down to the fact that she's just extremely popular. We see her all around the game in the second chapter. She has her own mini story and lore revolving around her, and I'm sure all of you guys were at least hoping for her to make an appearance in chapter 3, and that's without her even physically being in the game at all yet. We only have one single trailer clip of her, which got her to be so popular. Plus, the developers have actually said before, when they originally released their behind the scenes video for chapter 2, that if any of the many scrap characters from that video ended up getting popular, they would go in and possibly add them in chapter 4 or later chapters, which shows that whether or not they admit it, the developers are very much willing to add characters or references into the game if they get asked enough for it. Still waiting for the Sheeprampage toy in the game, by the way. And that makes me believe Daisy will at least get some sort of a mention. But on a more serious note, there's also Huggy Wuggy, who for the longest time has been hinted at since chapter 2 of coming back with his mini cameo in the second chapter, and even him getting his own VHS tape for chapter 3, it almost seems like a no-brainer at this point for him to come back. Especially since in the previously mentioned chapter 3 ARG, where we are given a camera archive database, if we enter in the date Huggy Wuggy escaped from the factory, we can find a password-locked camera archive that presumably will show what exactly happened to him in the factory, once again pointing at the idea that there's more of a story to him and he's going to make an appearance in the chapter. The only problem with this theory is that while there are a ton of mini Huggies we see around the game, as far as we know, there's only one big Huggy, and we could see that he's on the mechanical thing here clearly as his bigger body, which maybe gives me the impression he could be dead, or maybe there's more Huggies that we're just not aware of. But I think the most likely culprit for chapter 3's returning characters has got to be Kissy Missy, as Kissy is the most mysterious character inside of chapter 2, with her being the only completely friendly character. And in her chapter 3 VHS tape, we could see her being transported into the playcare before something intervenes at the location, meaning she was able to free roam around that area. But the only question is, why was she being sent into the playcare? It's a question that I personally think we will finally learn here in the third chapter with her upcoming appearance, and she also makes herself an appearance in the ARG like Huggy, where when entering her VHS day into the camera station, it brings up a password-locked archive as well. I mean, she's probably my favorite and a ton of other people's favorite character in the entire game so far, and it seems like she is 100% going to be reappearing, at least in my opinion. And also, while these are the only few I think are going to be in the chapter, there are a ton of other options for returning characters like Bron the dinosaur most famously, and of course the smaller, less important characters like Boogiebot, Candy Cat, and Cat Bee, who have always been making little cameos in every game, albeit as dead bodies. But the final question I wanted to talk about is, what are we even going to be exploring in chapter 3? Because the answer to this question seems pretty obvious. We're going to be entering the playcare and trying to discover all its secrets. That's been the main focus forever now. However, I believe there's something missing to the story that nobody is mentioning, albeit for chapter 3 or even chapter 4 and beyond, which is that if you didn't know, all of the characters in the game are referred to as bigger bodies, part of the Bigger Bodies Initiative, something done by a character named Harley Sawyer to turn people into toys to save money on work. Simple enough. However, for the past few months in Project Playtime, we've been communicating with some mysterious beings, sending us VHS tapes and even a phone, while we try to discover what the Bigger Bodies Initiative is. It seems like the main plot of the game at this point. But if our goal is to try and solve the mystery of what happened to the employees, like what we are literally supposed to do based on the note given to us at the start screen, the playcare is the wrong place to be looking. Rather, we should be looking at the much more mysterious innovation room, which is a seemingly extremely minor area that we passed by in chapter 1. We see it a mere once, locked behind a door that wasn't able to be entered. However, this area is extremely important because, as we know, this is where the main human antagonist of the entire game, Leaf Pierre, worked at as the head of innovation, meaning all of the dark secrets that we have been trying to solve for multiple months to almost years now would be hiding inside of this room. And furthermore, we can also basically confirm that this is where every single monster was created, since in the second Project Playtime VHS, we can hear Elliot monitoring the creation of Boxy Boo, presumably in the innovation area because he worked there. And if that's not enough proof for you, in the chapter 3 ARG, there is a locked folder called Innovation that inside literally reveals a file called the Bigger Bodies Initiative. So clearly, while the playcare is an interesting idea, the more important area seems to be the mysterious innovation room, which we hopefully end up exploring in chapter 3 or chapter 4. But let me know what else you think think we could be missing from the story here in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and peace out, guys.